Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to, for the class of 2024, for the beginning of an unbelievable journey ahead. Tonight, you begin your college planning process, and that tonight is the first workshop out of a 3-workshop series program that our school counseling department puts together. You'll have 2 this year, one obviously tonight, one in the spring, and then you'll have your final one in the fall of your senior year. And really the idea around it is to really help navigate for you really where you see yourself and really identifying the colleges, universities that really are going to find a really cool place for you to go. So for the juniors that are here tonight, really, I'm glad you're here tonight because this whole program is really for you to start thinking about what's next. And for the families that are here with them, and for the families that are here representing your juniors, we hope that it will be an unbelievable night that's informative for you. The panel presentation is really well done. And I know I want to introduce, it all is brought to you by our school counseling department, Mr. Stephen Goldman, Mrs. Amy Byrne, and our other school counselor is just finishing up his leave as he had his second little boy on Christmas morning. So he is here in spirit with us. We know he's probably changing diapers and helping out at home. So without further ado, we want to get this thing started. Enjoy the night, ask questions. And this is really an ongoing process. So we're looking forward to seeing where this takes you over the next year. And before you know it, you'll be sitting here getting ready to make your decision. I'll leave you with this. I was just walking a parent down to another meeting, and her daughter is a senior. And she's like, I remember going to this. And she said, now I'm just trying to figure out, or she's trying to figure out where to go, that she has all of her acceptances back. And now it's just a decision of where to go. And she said, I can't believe how fast it's here. So get ready for an unbelievable ride. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Mr. Goldman to get the event started. See you soon, everyone.
So a message went out this morning about all our tech problems, and we were hoping we were going to make it through tonight without any issues. So not sure what happened to our visuals, but this is a big part of our presentation. But we will do the best we can to get through this and get you the information. As Mr. Brannigan said, this is part 1 of a 3-part series. You can never start this process too soon. It is not a hard process. It is just a very detailed process, and it just takes time. It's not something you can just get together in the next couple of weeks and say, I'm just going to do this and be done with it. It takes a lot of time to do a thorough job and make a very, very expensive decision in the process. So we're glad to see such a great turnout. We also have folks joining us from home tonight as we're live streaming. If at any point you want to rewind and see what was said, we're going to be posting the video from tonight on our website once the Middleborough Educational Television edits everything. We're back. I knew if I talked long enough, it would come back. All right, so there is one more member of our department that we want to introduce. Our intern, Deirdre Atherton, is right over here. Today's her first day with us, and we're making her work overtime. So she's going to get the full experience working with us. So that's going to be another resource in the office in addition to the school counselors. If we're tied up with something, she will be available to assist the students also. So when you came in, hopefully you grabbed the agenda out on the table out there, what we're going to talk about tonight. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over this workbook right here, which is going to be emailed to you tomorrow morning. Every parent and student in the class of 2024, and I apologize right now if I say class of 2023, because that's what we've been dealing with about this college stuff for the last several months. So don't take that personally, please. But this book is going to be going out to all the families and the students, as will the other ones. So you will have your own copy of it to use as a reference guide. We tried to simplify this process and put it into a step-by-step program for you folks. It can get incredibly overwhelming, which is why we do 3 workshops. And not most high schools only do 2. They do one in March for the juniors, overwhelm them with all the information. And then they do one in the fall. We decided to let's break it up. Let's talk about what we need to do between now and April. And then on April 26th, we'll have part 2, and we'll pick up where we left off. That program's called What You Should Be Doing Over the Summer. We have a college application boot camp which we'll talk about a little bit later, to help get started on the application process and the essays. And then we'll have the nuts and bolts of applying to college in late September of the senior year. So what I would like to do first is take a quick run through of the workbook. We're not going to go line by line through it. It's pretty self-explanatory, step-by-step instructions of what you need to do and where you're going to find the stuff. We wanted to call it College Planning for Dummies, but we didn't think that was a good title. So it's really a simplified version of what needs to happen here with this process. So it's on the inside of all of our workbooks, on the inside cover, you're going to find a timeline of important information, of dates and deadlines for tests, college fairs, anything that is important. Something you'll notice here in February, GPAs will be posted in your SCORE accounts. What SCORE? Mrs. Burns is going to explain that to you in a few minutes. But that will happen once the semester ends and all the grades are fixed up and there's no incompletes left and everything's just right. We're going to rerun the junior class grade point averages and class ranks, and we will post your GPAs in SCORE. So if you want to know what it is, probably around February vacation time, just before, you should hopefully be able to see your GPA right there. So again, just take a look here for important information of things coming up. Here's your school counseling staff right here. Mrs. Pont is the other person, our administrative assistant. She is wonderful and very helpful. So if we happen to be tied up with someone or something at the time, there's a good chance she could probably answer your question. If not, she has access to all of our calendars and can schedule you for an appointment. This here is just a little bit about what we're responsible for in this process and what you're responsible for. It's not our job to do this for you. It is here to provide advice, recommendations, and to help you go through the process and answer any questions. But ultimately, completing applications and sending things out is on the student. That needs to make sure, you need to make sure that that happens. We don't have access to your applications and that other stuff. But if you certainly are stuck and not sure what you should be doing with things, you absolutely need to be in touch with your school counselor. So we can help move you along in the process. So where to begin? It tells you here a little bit of what you should be doing by mid-April, the next time we meet. Some knowledge that you should have going into the process, and pay special attention to things such as SAT dates and deadlines. Read the school counseling department newsletter that comes out once a month. Read Brannigan's bulletin that comes out every Sunday around 4 o'clock. You will find important information related to you and your class and what needs to happen as we go through this process together. And most importantly, check your email. All of you should be checking your email daily. I'm not lecturing parents. This is for the students. I can't tell you how many times we'll have a student that will email us, I need to see you about something. We email them back with a time to meet. They don't show up. What happened? I emailed you back. Oh, I don't check my email. And that's also how the teachers communicate with you. It's important. That's how the colleges are going to communicate with you. And if you don't do things in a timely way, you know, we're pretty forgiving around here and we'll work with you on things, but you miss a college deadline, you miss a college deadline. Apply next year. We'll be happy to consider you then. There's nothing a phone call from us can do about that, a phone call from a parent. You need to really make sure you are on top of this process and you are taking care of yourself, because this is all about you. And right now, probably the next biggest decision you're going to make in your life. Testing information. So we have information on the ACTs and the SATs. The SATs are probably more familiar to you. Most of our students take SATs. It's more of an East Coast test. The ACTs are less known in this area. It's more of a Midwest and Western test. Colleges take either one these days. Most of our students, and you should probably start with the SAT. Everyone should take the SAT. We recommend twice, once in the springtime and again in either late summer or early fall. And prior to December. December is, oops, I changed my mind. I want to go to college now. I would target May. We recommend a May SAT. This way you will get your scores back prior to school closing. And if you have questions, we are here still and we can answer them. If May is a conflict, you have athletics, you got something else going on that day, then take the June ones, and at least you got a set in the springtime. And then we are also a test center in November. So if it's not too late, if you're not applying early to college, then a November one would be fine. If you are applying for a November 1st, or there's actually a few schools with October deadlines now, then you may want to consider taking an October one, and you don't have to take them here, or August, but we are not a test center. Most high schools are not air conditioned, so it might not be a great test environment for you. You can take them anywhere that's offering them. Bridgewater State offers SATs, and a lot of the schools in the area offer them on different times that we don't offer them. More testing is not better. Take the SATs twice. You have two different scores to compare and contrast. You can super score, and what a super score is, if you did better on the English side of things the first time and the math the second time, you can send both scores, and the colleges will take the highest score from each test, and they call that a super score. If you've taken the SATs twice and you're still not satisfied with your scores, and you're not planning on doing any significant preparation before you take a third test, then don't take a third SAT, switch over to the ACT. It's set up a little bit differently, and it's 4 different sections. It's English, math, science, and reading, I believe. And the scores, instead of being on the 200 to 800 scale, they're on a 1 to 32 scale, but we can compare those scales. So an average SAT score, roughly 1,000 combined, 1,010, would be the equivalent of roughly 18 to 22 on an ACT. So the colleges know how to interpret that. Sometimes you do better on the ACTs because it's more of a subject-based test. But again, more testing isn't better. And it gets expensive. The prices keep jumping every year for these tests. They're around $60 to take one of them, and then you have to pay to have scores sent out and all that fun stuff. So that's testing. We have all the dates and the deadlines listed here. Try to avoid registering late because there's a $36 charge on the ACTs and a $30 charge on the SATs if you register late. And there we show you where you should, the ones we recommend that you take. Here's a rough timeline of when you should be taking these tests. So moving on to junior year, the PSATs we offered in the fall. So you should have those scores at this point. If you want to do prep work, if you haven't done so already, you can match up your, your test scores through your College Board account with Khan Academy, and they will customize an SAT prep program for you. Based on your scores. So this way, if you did really well on the English side of things, but it looks like math is the area that you had some struggles with, that's where the prep will focus on. So you're not wasting time and you're focusing on the areas that you need improvement on. Again, SAT in the spring of junior year, and then again in the summer or fall of the senior year. CEEB code. That is a code that is assigned to every high school, every college in the country. And that is how you are identified for your test scores. So when you register to take one of these tests, you are going to have to plug in Middleborough High School's CEEB code, which is 221405, in order for your scores to get to us, so we can see them and we can work with you on that. And also when you're reporting your test scores to colleges, we cannot send your SATs to colleges. We have no legal right to access and submit those. That's something you have to do through your College Board account, and you'll have to use the code numbers to be able to do that. So there'll be more to come on that as we move further into the process. This here is just information to get onto the school counseling department website. How many people here didn't know we had a website? We have a website. It's actually a kind of a big website that we're trying to cut down and make a little bit more user-friendly, but we do have a website that you can start getting information on. We have a calendar of school counseling department events right on the homepage. There's a link for each class, so you guys should be focusing on the junior link, where we will be posting the video from tonight's presentation, where we will be posting the workbook that I'm going to email to all of you. That is, all that information will be on the junior link. And it gives you instructions there how to access it. SCORE is our new computer software career planning and college planning software program. Mrs. Byrne is going to come up and do a demonstration of it in a few minutes for you. This is a program. We are going to be getting all the juniors onto this program starting in a couple of weeks, I believe, right? Okay. We're going to be going into classes, and we're going to get you guys to log on and register. This is your personal account. You need to save your passwords. We do not know what your passwords are. If you do not remember your password, you will need to reset your password. You're going to have to click on Forgot Password. We can't help you with that. You can't ignore this program if you are planning on applying to college. Okay, you might not want to use it for career searching. You may not want to use it for college searching, but you will have to use it to get your documents submitted from us to the colleges. You have to make your request for transcripts through SCORE. This way, there's no, I told you that I wanted you to send them. It's either been submitted through electronically or it hasn't been submitted electronically. We submit everything electronically once we get notification that you're requesting things and you're telling us which schools to send things to. Unfortunately, every year we have more than a handful of seniors that just kind of go quietly about doing their college planning stuff, do their part, and then they show up after the deadline and say to us, how come you didn't send my transcript? If you didn't put it in SCORE and you didn't come to us and talk to us about it, we would have no idea that you applied to that school. So it's very important that you are learning how to use this program. It is very, very user-friendly. And it is very, it's going to really help you navigate this process. One of the things that's in SCORE that you guys can start working on is your activity sheet. The activity sheet is located at the bottom of your personal profile page. There's a link at the bottom. You scroll all the way down, you click on it, and then this orange form that you see pops up, and you start plugging in all of the activities that you've been involved with over the course of the last 4 years. Or if you've been involved in something that is more long-term, if you've been dancing since you were very young, piano lessons, horseback riding, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, any of that outside stuff that you've had a long-term commitment to, then certainly you can include that information on there too. That form eventually you're going to submit to your school counselor, and it's also the second page of the scholarship application. So when you guys start filling out scholarship applications in February of 2024, you'll already have the second page of the application completed. Any forms that you are filling out for us are Word documents. So you should not ever save anything in Google. Google will change the formatting. It'll really mess things up and move things all around that will make no sense at all. We are trying to find a better way of doing this, but right now this is what we've got. So your options are to save things as Word documents or PDFs. And on the next page, we have a sample of in-school and out-of-school activities that you should be thinking about including on your activity sheet. You'd be surprised at how many things people leave out. Let's say you played soccer for freshman and sophomore year and you never played again. As long as you didn't quit, you should be putting that on your activity sheet. Okay, if you quit in the middle of the season, that's a different story. But it's an activity. You weren't just going to school and going home and sitting on the couch doing nothing. So you should make sure you're accounting for all your time. So many times I'll say part-time work to a student, and they're like, nope. Babysitting? Well, yeah, babysitting. That's a job with a lot of responsibility. So certainly you should be including things like that. So read this over. It'll help you fill out those forms. Just keep in mind, if you skip different things here on this, this is something that helps us round out your letter of recommendation. Okay? So you get out of it what you put into it. You give us one-liners or leave things blank. It might be good anecdotal information that can be helpful to us to show you as a well-rounded person to the college admissions counselors when they're reading these letters. So if you had a leadership position, talk about it. Doesn't have to be a novel. List a few things on there, what you did as the captain of your team or the president of your club. or the award you won for most improved player or league MVP or whatever it might be. It's important for you to make sure that you are just giving us a nice little taste of things. The colleges don't want us to say, great kid, got A's, B's from classes, and played softball and basketball and did some community service, period. They can read all that on your application. That's not giving them any new information. They want the anecdotal information. Okay, they want to know, your product's accomplishment was starting varsity when you were a freshman. Why was that your product's accomplishment? Give 2 or 3 reasons of what you did to earn that. That's what they're interested in hearing about. Okay, so moving along. Matching self to school, that's what we're going to talk about today with the panel, so we'll get to that in a little bit. Ms. Byrne is going to demonstrate the college search, and then when you go home, and we email this to you, you'll have step-by-step instructions showing you exactly how to conduct a college search. Okay. How many people here have already visited a college? Wow, very good. Very, very good. Okay, so tips for visiting colleges. Talk to students. Students love to talk about their schools. The admissions folks, nothing personal, admissions people, but their job is to talk about the school and tell you all the great things that are happening, but they are not the students. They are not the ones living there. They're not the ones in the day-to-day activities. And a lot of the admissions counselors are young, but some of them are older, and they don't. And things change from when we were younger and the way we did things when we were at college. So you want to talk to the students. They're the ones that are close to age and you, have similar interests. They'll tell you what's great about the school. They'll tell you what they don't like. They tell you, if they had to do it over again, would they still go there? And it's really important that you hear from them because they're the ones that are your experts. And here are some additional questions to ask, things that maybe you haven't thought of living at home. Can I have a car on campus? What's how many meals a day do I get? All the things that you don't think about because it's just there waiting for you when you get home. How safe is it on a college campus? There's crime everywhere. Okay, it's crime in Middleborough. But how safe is the campus? Is there a shuttle service at night? Is the campus well lit? You want to, all these things that you just haven't thought about in the past, you want to start to kind of process and take in as you're visiting these schools and see how it fits you and the comfort level you have with it. Make sure you get yourself on mailing or email lists. You can get lots of information from the schools by doing that. Excuse me. And at the end of the book here, we have events that are coming up over the course of the next several months. Actually, it goes all the way to February 2024. So there are several college fairs that are coming up. Some of them are virtual, some of them are in person. And we have some really great news. This year, Middleborough High School, for the first time, is going to be hosting a regional college fair on March 16th in our gym. The times have not been set yet, but it'll probably be late afternoon into early evening. So we're just starting the process of inviting people to come on in here. So we're hoping to get anywhere from 50 to 100 colleges to come on in from all over New England. So it's right here in your backyard. It'd be a great opportunity for you to come in and get some information, start meeting people. Usually the people that come to the college fairs in the region are the ones responsible for that region and will be the ones reading your applications. So it's always nice to introduce yourself and make a contact. I have not met an admissions counselor that does not have an incredible memory and remembers those interactions and those people. If you talk to somebody, whether you're on campus or not, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I don't want to take thunder away from the panel. So anyways, lots of fairs going on, okay? College Planning Night Part 2, April 26th. College Application Boot Camp, the date hasn't been set. It's usually in August sometime. Financial aid workshops are usually in the fall. So just to let you know, we are not discussing in any detail financial aid tonight. That part of the process does not start until October. There will be plenty of opportunity to have those discussions. We're not experts in financial aid, and it's a very complex process that's constantly changing. We used to have people come in and actually do a presentation in the fall of the senior year. Since COVID, those have ended, and they're doing a lot of virtual stuff now. So once we get the list of all the virtual workshops that are coming out, we will forward that information to you. And then finally, the scholarship night. The local scholarship booklet will come out. It usually comes out about the week before February vacation of the senior year. And then you usually have about 6 weeks or so to be able to complete and submit all the applications for the ones you're interested in applying to. The back of the workbook, we have a sample of how to fill out a activity sheet. And then we have a glossary of terms, because you're going to hear a lot of acronyms that we use that are used in higher education, and a lot of just different things that maybe are new to you. So you have the opportunity to see and look up what some of those things are. So that is the workbook in a nutshell. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Ms. Byrne to come on up here and show you how to do a search on SCORE.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Thank you to all of you for attending our college boot camp. I know, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's in August. College application night, our first one for this year. How many people here are students or parents are feeling a little bit like stressed out or overwhelmed by thinking about this whole process? Okay. So I've actually been, doing this work for 22 years, and my daughter, my oldest child, is a class of 2024, not here at this high school because we live in a different town, but I'm actually very stressed out and overwhelmed by the whole thing. But I know that we're going to break it down for you guys here, and that's my plan for at home with my daughter. And we're all going to get through this together. So I hope that allays some of your fears. So right now, you guys are at the very beginning of this process, and that's where you're at. So you shouldn't be at the point where you feel like you have the 5 schools that you're going to apply to. You've written your essay, you've visited all the campuses and met with admissions officers. You guys are at the beginning. So you got to take it. This is your first step. So you're just starting that research. And part of starting that research is coming up with probably a pretty big list of schools at this point. You might have 20, 30, 40, 50 schools on your list this month, next month, okay, for the next couple of months, because what you need to do over time is narrow that list down, okay? So it may feel a little overwhelming at first because you have so many different schools that you're looking at, and that's okay because you're going to take the time to do the research and talk to your school counselor about it, talk to your family, your friends, and it will happen. It will come together. So I just want to introduce you guys to SCORE. Like Mr. Goldman said, you will have to use this program next fall when you're applying to college. There's no way around it if you're going to be applying to mainly four-year colleges. So no time is better than right now to start utilizing the program. We did send out an invitation to students last, I believe it was mid-May. And so they got an invitation to join SCORE at that time. and you may or may not have registered for your account. And so you may be sitting here saying, well, I've already been using SCORE and researching and whatnot, and that's great. And there are other people here who are saying, I got an email. So no worries. We are going to be going into junior classrooms. We're starting next week. We have 3 that we will be going to next week. And then the others we are going to have to visit right after the second semester starts. So probably like the first, second, or right before the February break vacation week. So we will get in, we will get you registered, and then once we have you registered, you can start searching. So I'm going to just show you an example of a search right now. So once you're registered, this is my mock student, Ima. And so this is what it looks like when she logs into her account. And so the next thing that I'm going to do to start a college search is I'm going to go up to Discover, and I'm going to click there at the top. And then it's going to say start your search up here. You can choose, like if you've already done a search before, you can click on my last search and it will go back to your last search. You can look at all colleges, 4-year U.S. colleges, okay? You can look at a specific region of the United States. Lots of different options. I typically go to 4-year U.S. colleges. So I start there. And then as you can see, 1,958 colleges pop up. So that's a lot. So you're probably not going to start going through each of those one by one because that's overwhelming. So you want to narrow this down a little bit. So, but you don't want to get too precise or too narrow, because then you might miss out on some really good schools that are out there that have what you're interested in. So, so I'm just going to go through this just for an example. There are filters here. So the first one is personal interests and activities. I usually skip that one, but if there is some kind of activity that you are specifically going to need at your college, you can choose this. They have different things, visual arts. Do they offer a campus tour? I mean, I don't usually select anything from this category. Academic focus, though, is the category that if you do know what you want to do for a major, or you have some kind of idea, like I think I want to study psychology, but I'm not entirely sure, then you can throw psychology in there. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so then psychology pops up. Now underneath that, it gives very specific areas of psychology, like applied psychology, biopsychology. So I'm just gonna stick with the general psychology, okay? And that's what I would advise. Okay, so now as you can see, that eliminated about 500 schools, all right, because they don't offer psychology. So then I'm going to go down a little bit further, and it asks undergraduate degree. It says 4-year bachelor's or 2-year associate. So I'm just going to leave it with the 4-year bachelor's because that's what I want to do. Distance and location. So this is a good one to use. So you can, it says location, starting point. So that would be here, in Middleborough. So I'm going to put the zip code in for Middleborough. And right now it says distance in miles. So it says 0 to 500. So this is going up to 500 miles away from Middleborough. So let's say you're somebody that really wants to be able to get home on the weekend if you want to. So maybe you want to reduce that down to 100 miles. Okay. So now we're down to 76 schools. So you can keep keep going. And like I said, you can get a little bit more narrow in your scope, but like there's athletics. So if you intend to play a college sport, Division 1, 2, or 3, then you should probably select athletics, type in your sport, and then it's going to ask you Division 1, 2, or 3. So you can have all those options, or if you only want Division 1, you select Division 1. Test scores and admission rate. I mean, I don't typically use this. You guys probably haven't taken the SAT yet, so you don't have a score to use. But if you do, then feel free to put your score in and it will use that. School type, so public or private. If your family is telling you that you're only going to apply to the public schools in Massachusetts or whatever, then you can select that. If they're like, hey, let's leave it wide open right now, then go for that. Campus setting. So some of you may or may not know, like I hate cities. I do not want to be in a city. So you can select everything but the city. Okay. Or if you're kind of like, I have no idea, I'm not sure, maybe I'd like a city, but maybe I would like a rural campus. Leave it all wide open, and it will give you every type of campus setting. So I'm gonna, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click campus setting, and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna do town, rural, and suburban. So that brings it down to 41 schools. That's pretty manageable, okay? So once you do that, what you can do is you can click on the school itself, and you can, it opens up like this. Some of the schools here have pictures. Some of them have like a virtual tour right here that you can look at. It will give you a description, what their, acceptance rate is, the cost, how many students there are, academics, so any programs, majors, minors they offer, admissions, information, student life, okay? So you can look at all of that stuff. And then if you decide, Stonehill sounds like an interesting place, I'm interested in that. So what you can do is to kind of save that is to click on follow, okay? Oh, following, okay. So now I'm following Stonehill. So say I go through all of these schools and I followed maybe like 5 or 10. And then what I can do is I can go to my colleges up here at the top. And as you can see, I previously had added Bridgewater and Emmanuel, but Stonehill is now added to my following list. So this is a way to keep track of what schools you're interested in, okay? And then you can click on them and go back to that. So this is kind of how you do a basic search. So other than that, I don't want to keep you too long here because I know the panel is eager to get up here and answer all your questions. But the other thing that I want to do is show you that you guys can do there are a lot of people probably who have no idea what they want to do. What do you want to be when you want to grow up? Everybody's asking you that question. Please don't ask me that question. I don't know what I want to be. I don't know what I want to major in. I just have no idea. So there is something called U-Science. It is an aptitude and interest assessment that you can take that is free on SCORE. We have access to this until I believe June 1st. After that, you will not have any access to it. But you can take that aptitude and interest test, and then it's going to tell you where your strengths are, and then it's going to tell you what careers would be best suited for you based on your strengths and your interests. I will tell you that I took the U-Science assessment, and I actually took a career assessment when I was a senior in college, and basically they both came out the same. And it's a good thing that one of the careers that was suggested for me when I took youth science assessment was school counselor. So I guess I'm where I'm supposed to be. But it was very interesting. So anyway, so you can find that by going to at the top, it says I, me. And so if you click on that and then you click on your profile, then you scroll down and under career profile, if you click on complete brain games, it might say something different for you. I think it might say take youth science assessment, because I've already done this. So I can log back in, but this is going to ask you to create like a login, and then it will just get you started on that. So let me see. Okay, I already set up the account, so I'm not sure how to get back into it. I will have to figure that out. But basically, it gives you lots of examples of different careers, and you can click on the careers and find out what you would be doing in that job. You can find out what type of education is needed to pursue that job or career. So it's pretty interesting. So I would highly encourage it. We are going to the classes. We are going to go through this search and talk about the youth science. So if you're here and you're like, oh, I can't remember it later tonight or tomorrow when you want to try to do it, we are going to give you this information again. So that is it for me. So I am thinking Mr. Goldman would like to introduce the panel, and we'll get on to the next part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Byrne. You got an applause. I didn't. Yeah. Okay. So the next part of our evening is the panel discussion. So I would ask that our panel members come on up on the stage so I can introduce them. Okay, so to my far right, we have Shannon Fernanda Cole, who has been with us for several years now. She is an admissions counselor from Bridgewater State University. And to her left, we have Catherine, what's your name here? Morgan, Catherine Morgan. Catherine's new to us this year. She's coming from Emmanuel College in Boston. So we have a public school and a private school to talk about some of the differences between the two. Our parent this evening is Ann Petty, and she is a seasoned veteran, parent of a member of the class of 21 and the class of 2023. And our student tonight is Maddie Ryder, who has just gone through the whole process. So we're all going to talk a little bit about the experience, what went well, what we would do differently, how to best prepare ourselves. I will, the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about is the matching yourself to the schools. Shannon, since you're a veteran, tag you're it.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming out tonight. So obviously, as mentioned, there are a lot of schools out there. So there are a lot of factors to consider when you're looking at what might be a good fit for you. So one of the biggest things to think about would be your program, academic program. If you're not sure, other factors to consider would be how close or far away from home you want to be. If you want to stay in state versus going out of state, because tuition does vary in state to out of state pretty significantly. So that's a big factor as well. Again, are you looking for a bigger school? Are you looking for a smaller school? City versus more suburban or a small town? Those are all, factors that you're going to want to look at, because on paper, these schools might look all the same. So it's important to think about what's important to you and prioritize that in your search when you are matching yourself to the school.
Okay. Catherine, do you have anything that you would want to add to that?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here with you all. Thanks so much for having me. I think matching self to school is obviously super important. The biggest advice that I can give is to visit the schools. As you were mentioning, do you want a bigger school? Do you want a smaller school? Obviously, you're going to have academic programs that you're looking for, but once you go on tour and you're actually on campus, it's like a totally different feel. It really does, if you go to a bigger university, I remember when I was touring schools, I went to a larger university and I just felt completely swallowed. And in that moment, I knew that, a big school wasn't going to be it for me. And that's when I started to explore smaller options. So to kind of match yourself to the school, go see the students, interact with your admission counselor and current students, like Mr. Goldman was saying, like that's super important to talk to current students and talk to them about their experiences. So definitely get to the school, and take in the city that it's in or the town that it's in and see if you can actually picture yourself there.
Maddie, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with the matching of the schools, the visits and all that?
So I recommend touring as many schools as you can. Start, like you guys are obviously juniors, so start February vacation, April vacation, honestly as soon as you can. The more schools you tour, the better, because I thought I liked some schools and then I toured it and I realized I didn't, or quite opposite, I thought I wouldn't like certain schools and then I actually loved them. So touring is honestly really important. You'll get to talk to people, students, talk to your tour guides. Even like if you don't want to talk to them like with your parents, tell them to like shoo, and then talk to the tour guides. Ask them any questions. That's why they're there. Because also you're there for your education, but you're also there for 4 years, 2 years. So you want to have a good time. Ask them what they do when they're not doing work. Just really ask them anything. They'll answer all your questions.
Really good point, because most of your time, you're going there for the academics. That's the primary reason. But most of your time there is going to be out of the classroom. And if you're not happy in your environment, that could have a huge impact on your academics. As a parent, Anne, you've gone through this twice now. Similar, different? How did that process go for you?
Yeah, it was different. My first daughter, it was during COVID, so we really didn't have that opportunity. But definitely what everyone else is saying about the touring is very important. We still went during COVID, but it was a totally different experience last year when we started touring with Maddie's age. So I would definitely recommend that. And it's funny that Maddie said that, because I was going to say about parents too. When you're on the tour, you students don't be embarrassed by your parents either, because this is a partnership. You're going to be doing this with your parents. Ultimately, the student really is the most important, but it's a partnership between the student and the parent, and you do need to work together. And I think everyone has their best interest, at heart. We want the best for our kids. So
Yeah.
Great, thank
ask
you.
all the questions you want.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You got to remember, you guys are the person buying the product. As much as you might be a little bit nervous about being accepted, you're the ones that you're going to be paying a lot of money for this, regardless of where you go. And you got to make sure that you're getting what you intend, that you want, what you think you're getting. Just because a school has a big name and you see them on TV all the time because they have a huge basketball team or football team, doesn't mean that's going to be the right setting for you. If you need more personalized attention in a classroom, being in a lecture hall of 200 with a professor will never know you personally. You may never have access to that professor. You may have to go to a graduate assistant that works for the professor. And that could be problematic for you. You can still get a big time experience at a small school. Let's talk a little bit, since we have a rep from the College of the Fenway, maybe you can talk a little bit about that consortium.
Yeah, of course. So yes, Emmanuel is located right in the Fenway neighborhood. So it consists of Emmanuel College, Simmons, Mass College of Pharmacy, Mass College of Art, and Wentworth. And the COF is super unique because Emmanuel has about 1,800 undergraduate students. So we're definitely, on the smaller side. We would be considered a smaller school. But the consortium is awesome because we kind of, work together in a partnership with those other institutions to, put on programming for students. Our intramurals and club sports kind of interact as well, which we're kind of getting back to this post-COVID, but part of the COF, you can go eat at Wentworth's Dining Hall, or you can use Simmons Pool, or, you can join another school's theater program. So although you are in an immediate community of 1,800 students at Emmanuel, if you want to meet other students and interact with those other schools, you can. Same goes with your academics. So Emmanuel students are eligible, well, all students across the COF are eligible to cross-register up to 60% of their courses. So say, for example, you wanted to fulfill your language requirement over at Simmons, they offer American Sign Language and they also offer Mandarin. So if you wanted to fulfill your language requirement at Emmanuel over at Simmons, you can do that. If you wanted to fulfill your art requirement at Mass Art, you can do that. So it really gives students, the freedom and flexibility to not only interact with students in, a fun and, activity sort of way, but you can also, broaden your horizons with academics as well. So it's a really unique consortium to be a part of because you have the comfort of your own institution. But, if you're feeling, ready to kind of meet new people and explore other things, then the COF is there for you.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about public schools versus private schools. Other than the cost, where privates tend to be more expensive than publics, I can tell you from personal experience and having a lot of friends that work in higher education, sometimes the public schools up north get a bad rap, that you're not going to get as good of an education in a public school as you would at a private school. But once you cross the Mason-Dixon and you head down south, the big question is, why do you want to go to a private school? So it's really perception on people, and that's where the visit and the questions and the reading all come in to make sure that you're getting what is going to personally satisfy you and give you the education that you want. Same thing with the cost and the education that you're going to go into. So for example, let's say we have people here thinking about being teachers. Well, in Massachusetts, within 5 years of starting your first job as a teacher, you need to get your master's degree. Otherwise, you can't continue to work as a teacher. So right there, if that's the field you're going into, you have to go to graduate school eventually. That might be a factor in deciding where you want to spend your money in the beginning and then and later on. Do you need to go to a school that costs $75,000 to get a degree in education, where you could go to a Bridgewater State, which is the second oldest public school in the United States, founded as a teacher college? They've been pumping out teachers for about 177 years or so, I think, at this point. That's their specialty. BU has a wonderful education program, but it's also about $73,000 a year to go to BU. And you need to go get a master's degree. So it's all part of the decision-making process. Buying the brand name product isn't always the best bet. You got to ask yourself, and you got to look, what experience am I going to get at this school that this other one that costs a lot less is going to give me? And a lot of times, sometimes the school that costs less actually is giving you a better experience or the same experience. So it's really important that you do a thorough job in the process. Can we talk a little bit about again, the differences between the publics and the privates, and also Emmanuel being a religious order also? What does that mean for a student going to a school that has a religious order attached to it?
Yeah, great question. So Emmanuel is a Catholic institution. I like to emphasize that students don't have to be Catholic to attend. You don't have to be Catholic to apply. The best way that I can describe it is that at Emmanuel, you can incorporate Catholicism into your Emmanuel experience however you see fit. We are a liberal arts institution as well, so we do have 2 theology courses that are required of students as part of the core curriculum. One of the theology classes is about Catholicism, but the second one doesn't have to be about Catholicism. It could be about, any other religion or spiritual practice in a class that we offer. So maybe you're not Catholic and you're interested in learning about, another, spiritual or religious practice. You absolutely can do that. We do have a chapel on campus. We also have mission and ministry on campus. By no means is mass required by students. Emmanuel is known for its community service through mission and ministry, but you don't have to be, religiously affiliated to join the mission and ministry. If you're interested in just getting involved in community service in the city of Boston, that's a great opportunity. So although we are a Catholic institution, your experience is as Catholic as however the student wants to make it. Even though, Catholicism is part of Emmanuel's identity, it doesn't have to be part of the student's identity.
Thank you. Thank you. So why don't we move on a little bit we started to talk a little bit about the visit. Let's talk about the interview piece. I know that depending on the school, some schools interview, some schools don't. Is the interview a valuable piece if the school wants to do something like that?
Yeah, so for some schools, they do offer interviews. Some of them may be optional. Some of them may be a required portion of the admissions component. Regardless, it is very much a valuable piece. It's an opportunity for you as a student to express who you are beyond the words on your application. When we as admission counselors review your applications, that's simply what we see is the words. We're not really getting a chance to meet the person behind those words. So when you have an opportunity to interview, you allow your personality to come through to the admissions counselor for them to really get a sense of who you are. And it's also a good opportunity for students to be able to ask any questions that they have and assess if it's a good fit. Bridgewater does offer optional evaluative interviews, so that's a great opportunity, as I said, for students to really kind of see, is this a good fit, get any questions answered, and it's a good opportunity for admissions staff to really find out what you're looking for in a school so we can make sure that we're putting you on the right path for your academic goals. So certainly if you have the opportunity to do an interview, it's something to consider. And just remember that this is an interview. So it's important to put your best foot forward, to be professional and respectful, and to dress professionally and appropriately for that as well.
What does that mean? As for a guy, okay, I don't want to get into women's fashion, but as a guy, do I need to wear a suit, a tie? What would you recommend?
Yeah, so I think it depends again on the school and how heavily the interview is weighted. But certainly you wouldn't want to come dressed in leggings or sweatpants and a sweatshirt. You would want to wear at least something like a button-up, a polo, a blouse for females, and just some sort of like casual dress shorts, khakis, something like that. Anything that's not just like athleisure wear certainly would be advised.
I love my flip-flops. Can I wear those? They make me feel comfortable.
I wouldn't recommend it. Same for the campus visit as well. There's a lot of walking on campus tours, so closed-toed shoes is always encouraged for that as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah. You made a lot of really great points about the interview. I also think that sometimes an interview has a little bit of a intimidating tone to it. As you mentioned, it really is a way for the admission counselor to get to know you, but it's also a way for you to get to know the school. So think of it as more of a conversation, still dress professionally and still put your best foot forward, but also know that it is also your opportunity to interview the school almost. So definitely, if you go in it with that mindset, I feel like it kind of eases a little bit of anxiety. With the term interview, like I said, it kind of has an intimidating connotation. So if you kind of think about it in that respect, it helps.
Can an interview make a difference in your decision on accepting a student?
So for Emmanuel specifically, demonstrated interest is super important to us when we look at an application. So it definitely does, think like, oh, this student took the time to, come to campus and sit with us and chat, or, even going on a tour or attending an open house. So any sort of demonstrated interest, I think with Bridgewater possibly as well, when we look at your application, to see that you took the time to, come and talk to us and explore our school a little bit further, I think it definitely does go a long way in the application process.
Yeah, agreed. Demonstrated interest, as you said, is important. And I will say too, for Bridgewater particularly, if you're a student who maybe had a rough semester, or COVID learning was really challenging for you, or you had a particular extenuating circumstance that reflected poorly in your academics, it's a really good opportunity to be able to sit down with admission staff, and if you feel comfortable, to share that, because that can also make a difference as well in our decision. I do also want to add that sometimes the interviews now are offered virtually. And with that, I would say it's important to make sure that you are doing those interviews in a space that's quiet for you and minimal distractions, both for you and for the person you are interviewing with. Because I've had conversations with students who are in a busy and chaotic room or in a cafeteria, and it's really challenging to have that conversation. So be mindful of the environment you're in when you take those interviews as well.
And did Lila go on any interviews?
Lila did not go on any interviews other than with some of the college coaches.
The coaches, okay.
Some
So that's a whole nother thing too.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Yep.
But Aileen did do some virtual.
Okay.
And again, the demonstrated interest, I think, is huge. I really do, as a parent. And I did, I did really let my girls know any email that comes through, any social media. I think both of my girls followed all the schools on social media. I don't know if that's tracked at all, but I was told that was another thing. They want to know, I'm sure, that the student is interested in their school too. For them to be offering a spot, think of all those applications they have.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. The social media piece too. I mean, a lot of schools have, Instagram or Facebook posts, for the class of, whatever year it is. So definitely make sure that you're joining those, because we can note that as well. When we're looking at, trends and all that stuff, like that's, we pay attention to those things. Did they post in the Facebook group? Are they trying to find, friends or roommates or things like that? So all of that is taken into consideration.
Maddie, did you do any interviews?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I know some of my friends who did for nursing, and it is very beneficial because, for example, nursing, it's such a tough.
Very competitive
Yeah.
programs to get into. Yeah.
So definitely, if you have the opportunity to do an interview, do it, even if it's optional. Anything with college that says it's optional, definitely do it. Because think about the amount of people who are applying to a certain school. They're all definitely doing the stuff that's optional. So you want to put your best self first. You want to do everything.
Very good. So we talked about social media. So why don't we continue with that subject for a little bit? Email addresses. Facebook, Instagram, all the different social medias that are out there. Set your settings to private, okay? Because from what I understand, they check them sometimes to see what some of the students are up to. If you, when you start the college application process, we are going to ask you to use a personal email address, not your school email address. And the reason for that isn't that we don't want you to use your school email address. However, what happens is when you graduate, that email address gets shut off. So if the college still has that, they won't be able to communicate with you. So it's important for you to establish your own personal email address. Now, some of us have very creative email addresses. Again, let's talk professionalism. If you have lovetoparty@aol.com, probably not a good email address to be using for your college applications. Or partygirl23 or any of those others that are out there. Just keep it simple, okay? First name, last name, first initial, last name, whatever. Keep it as simple as possible. Don't give them any reason to question your what's the word I'm looking for? Character. Thank you. your character, okay? So just a kind of a heads up with that, because that stuff is looked at from time to time. And it's kind of appalling at times when you see some of the things there. So check those settings. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the application and actually, no, before we do that, I told you earlier that we're going to let you know what your GPAs and your ranks are coming up shortly. What we're going to do also, when we get back from February vacation, we will print a unofficial copy of all the class of 2023 transcripts. Okay, if 24, thank you. 24 transcripts. We are going to, and we will have those at the front desk with Mrs. Pont. If you would like a copy of yours, we'll make an announcement when they are available. If you would like a copy, we will give you a copy of it, and you feel free to make as many copies of that as you would like. It's always nice to be able to take those on an interview or a visit to a college. So if you're meeting with an admissions counselor, you can show them what you've done so far. They can help advise you if you're on the right track with their school, or even say, you know what, you might want to think about these schools also. So we will provide that information for you as soon as everything is updated, and let you know. We talked about dress. Preparing for an interview. Probably the most common question that trips up people the most is, tell us a little bit about yourself. And it is not a trick question, okay? You don't have to be a rock star. You have to be yourself. I am so-and-so. I am the oldest of 3 kids. I play this sport. I'm interested in this. I play guitar as a hobby, whatever. They just want to see what you're about. That's all. It's not a trick question. Okay. You don't have to sit there and say, I'm a straight A student and I study every night. You know, if your grades will reflect that. Okay. Also, read about the school a little bit. Okay. Know a little bit about the school, because they may ask, why are you interested in our college? I see that you have a program in the after. You have a program working with special needs kids. I have a deep issue. Bridgewater's got a program like that still, right? On the weekends, and I have a real interest in doing that. I would literally like to get some experience with that. I play field hockey, and I'm really excited. I really want to continue to do that. I see that you guys have a good field hockey team at Division III school, perhaps, and I think I can make that team. I love your athletic facilities. I work out a lot, and that would really be nice for me to be able to do that. The majors that you're interested in, maybe you don't know what you want to major in. The most popular major is undecided. You don't have to make that decision until the end of your sophomore year in college. But you have several programs that I'm interested in. I want to sample it. So just kind of know a little bit about the school, the location. You're close. I want to be in a city. I really want to experience all the opportunities. Or I love being out I love skiing, so I want to go up north and be at a school that that has a lot of snow and stuff like that. So it could be a variety of different things. None of these are trick questions. Just have a few in your back pocket. And certainly, if you want to do some practice before you go for an interview, check in with your school counselor. We'll be happy to do some mock interviewing with you. And most importantly, make sure that you thank the person that interviews you or gives you a tour of the campus or spends any amount of time with you, and not just thank you when you're there. Follow up in writing, an email. No one does thank you notes anymore. Do you get thank you notes?
Sometimes.
You do, okay. But at least an email.
An
to that
email is
person,
sufficient.
okay? That stuff all goes in the file too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So when they're making those final decisions and they're narrowing it down and they only have a few more spots, but they get this big pile, all those little character things make a big difference in the final decision making at the end. Okay. Take notes. Have a piece of paper and a pen. Take notes. Things you like, things you don't like. You're going to go to that first visit. How many of you that visited already went to the first visit and thought that was going to be the school for you? And then you went on the second visit. So what was I thinking about that first school? Okay. You got to compare and contrast. You're going to see huge differences. I've been on a lot of college campuses. Before I was a school counselor, I worked in higher ed. And I've been on college campuses where like, wow, these people would come up to you and say, hey, how you doing? Complete strangers. Springfield College is like that. Unbelievable how friendly they are there. I've been to other colleges, I won't name them, but that you walk around and you've been on campus for 20 minutes and you haven't seen a single person. You walk through the residence halls, every single door is closed. There's no sense of community or people interacting with each other. You know, for some people, that might be the environment they want. They're private people. They're there just to study. They don't want to have a lot of social interaction. But if that's not you, that's probably not the right place for you. Okay, so now let's move along. Let's go to the application and the essay, two very important pieces. I will tell you right now, the hardest part of this process is the essay. Filling out applications, name, address, telephone number. If you can't answer those questions, you're probably not ready for college. The most challenging question you'll get on an application is going to be your social security number. And if you don't know it by now, you're going to have to learn it because that's something you're going to have to use for life. But the essay, which is the thing that people always save to the very end, is a thing that takes the most amount of time. If you're going to do a well thought out essay, you don't want to sit there and say, okay, I did all the other stuff. Now I'm going to sit down this week and I'm going to do my essay and be done. It doesn't work like that. You need some time. First of all, you need to find out what the questions are. And then you need some time to think about that and see how, and start framing it out. Okay. And then you want to start to write some stuff. And then you want to start to put it in paragraph form. And then you want to do a good solid first draft. And then you want to get away from it for a while. Clear your head. How many times have you been home studying for a test and you've read the same thing 4 or 5 times and you're just not focused at that point? It's all blending. You're like, what did I just read? That's what happens with the essay if you're sitting there and doing this, just doing it and not taking a break. Get away from it for a while. Do something fun, relax, go out with your friends, come back with a fresh perspective. You're going to find mistakes that you couldn't see before. You're going to find sentences you're like, no, that doesn't make sense there. Let's move this over here. And just go through that process over and over. Have an English teacher proofread it. Make corrections. Have an English teacher proofread it again. Make corrections. Keep going through that process until you have a well thought out essay and a well worded essay, because that is also something I believe that if things are a little bit lower in other areas, you express yourself incredibly through an essay can make a huge difference in the end with the decisions. So why don't we talk a little bit about, let's talk a little bit about what's important with the essays from your end. Catherine, why don't you start this time?
Yeah, sure. So the essay is one of my favorite parts of the application. I always make note of some of my favorite essays and I'll go back and read them. So the essay is really an opportunity for you to tell us about yourself, in your own words. There are 2 things that I feel always come up with essays. I read a lot of depressing essays, very sad essays. And then I also read some essays that are about other people. And the whole point of the essay is to talk about yourself. I want to know what you're like and what your experiences have been. And I feel as though a lot of students tend to gravitate towards more sad topics, like maybe something, that happened in your life, and not to discredit those experiences, if they have an impact on you and if they have, if you have a story to tell in that regard, we're not trying to discredit that. Sometimes I feel as though students think that if they write about that, it may increases their chances of getting in and things like that. There's a lot of misconceptions about the essay and what admission counselors want to read. Personally, I really just want to know about you. I want to know, when you started playing the piano when you were 5 years old and you've grown to love it so much. And, tell me about, an art project that you were really passionate about and one that you were really proud of. Tell me about the best day of your life. Tell me about, anything that makes you you. Obviously, your family members are important. Your friends are important. But sometimes I feel as though students can focus a little bit too much on them specifically, and the essay becomes more about them than about the student. So just definitely keep yourself in mind when writing the essay and try and keep it light, try and keep it positive. I feel like the the majority of the essays that I read do have a little bit, of a sad tone to them. So the ones that are a little bit more upbeat and positive, those are the ones that I remember and, stand out to me.
And I would think if somebody was writing about something that was tragic in their life, I'm assuming you'd appreciate how they've turned it around.
Yes.
And refocused and recentered themselves
Right.
and overcame it.
Yes.
Because it shows their strength and their perseverance.
Right. And that does say a lot about the
Mhm.
student, and as I mentioned, I'm not trying to discredit your experiences or take away anything that you've experienced in your life, because at the end of the day, it's part of your story and it's part of who you are. But putting that positive spin on it, definitely does help. So yeah, great point.
Yeah. And it's funny, I have a friend of mine that was an admissions counselor for years at Boston College. And he used to always tell me, he goes, I read the most wonderful stories about grandma and grandpa, and we'd gladly accept them.
Yeah.
If you're going to write about another person, that's okay too, but always bring it back to yourself. As a result of my experience with this person, these are my goals, my beliefs, my values, my lessons that I've learned, how I choose to live my life. That's the stuff that people want to hear about not just how wonderful they were and the things that they overcame. That's nice, but the essay is about you. Maddie, your essay.
Yeah, so college boot camp is very, very helpful. I didn't start writing my essay until college boot camp. I recommend doing it, first off. And when you go to college boot camp, have an idea of what you want to write about. But I didn't know that there was 6 or 7 options that you had to choose to write your essay about. So that's something that I learned and a lot of people learned about. So I had an idea of what I wanted to write about, and then it just changed. But Miss Connor and Miss Hill are great. They'll work with you one-on-one, and you have a week. I think that's college boot camp, but they will help you. I remember I emailed Miss Connor at 11 p.m. In literally probably a few months ago. They'll always be willing to help you. And your college essay, it can honestly be about anything. I know people who've written it about a Lego. Another friend written it about horror movies. You can write about anything from little to something in your childhood, as long as you bring it back to yourself and how it kind of describes who you are and answers one of the prompts, you'll do well.
Yeah, there's I can't remember how many prompts they have now. It's probably 6 or 7 prompts.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's usually an experience where you learn something about yourself, an obstacle or a challenge you've overcome, a person you admire and why. And the last one is a topic of your own choice. So if you don't like any of those others and you feel like you want to write about something that just is important to you or interesting to you, certainly you could do that. Sometimes that scares people, but it's up to the individual what you want to do as far as the essay goes. And that's the common application that we're talking about. The common application, which we'll talk more about in the next workshop, is one application that there's about just over 1,000 colleges now that subscribe to this application. So you fill the application out one time, you write one essay, and you submit it to all the schools. So it's a huge time saver. So some colleges have their own application still in addition to the Common App. Do you guys? Bridgewater does.
We do.
You just use the
Just
Common
the Common App. Yep.
Okay. You don't get any extra points using the college's own application over the Common App. If they didn't like it, they wouldn't subscribe to it. And so it's important that you save the time and just fill that stuff out one time and write one essay. Is it okay to interject a little bit of your personality into it? If you're a funny person, can you put a little humor into it? If you're a funny person, not a funny person, then maybe now's not the time to test that out. Okay. Again, so like I said, that's the thing that's going to take the most time. As Maddie was saying, college application boot camp, it usually runs about, is it 4 days?
Yeah, I think
it's 4 days. You're going to spend the majority of the time with one of the English teachers. Last year was Miss Connor and Mrs. Hill. And then you'll spend you'll spend 1 day with your school counselor and work on open up the common application. And we'll go line by line with it. So by the time you finish at the end of the day, you will have had probably close to about 95% of the application complete. And by the time you finish the end of the week, you'll have a final draft of your essay ready to upload into the Common App. Nobody wants to come in the summer, us included. However, for the amount of time that you put in, and it's not a whole day, it was half days, I think, wasn't it? Was it a couple hours a day or something?
Yeah, it was 2 sessions.
Okay. It's worth it for the amount of time that you have to come in and do that. By the time you walk in the doors here, your senior year in September, you're pretty much, I mean, it's cleanup time, at the end. The application process is almost done. You can focus on just keeping your grades up, enjoying your senior year, and just moving on to the next thing on your list. So like I said, we don't like coming in either, but it's well worth it for us to come in and do that, because the amount of time it saves us when we get back, instead of having to sit for an hour and 20 minutes with each senior, that meeting's now 20 minutes because they've completed all the stuff. We know they completed it because we sat down with them over the summer and did it. So it benefits everybody, and it helps get everything out in a more timely way also. I have online versus mail. There's not too many applications that are handwritten and mailed in anymore. Some of the community colleges still do, but pretty much everything is online now. And it was so funny when that first started. There was so many people that were not trusting the online process. They had to put it in the mail to make sure it got there. And it's so funny how it's the opposite now. Early action and early decision. You're going to have to make a choice on how you want to apply to college. So there's early action, there's early decision, there's regular decision, and then sometimes there's priority and early decision 2. And I'll let Shannon explain some of that stuff.
Sure, yeah. So it's important to know the difference between early action and early decision. So early decision is a binding, contractual application. So if you get accepted to that school, you are saying that you will deposit and you will attend that school. So obviously, if that's your number one choice, that's a great way to go about it. But if you're not sure that you're going to attend that school, it's not recommended to apply early decision. Early action is non-binding, and it's a great way for you to show your interest in a school and to apply earlier. You're going to hear back from that school earlier as well. And typically in early action, you're not going to get rejected. So that would, if you're not meeting the admissibility, the admissions office will reach out to you and say, listen, at this time, we're going to defer your application. We'll look at it during regular decision and we'll reconsider. They'll let you know what they need from you as well to increase admission. So it's a really great option if you maybe are on the cusp, or if you are really, really interested in that school. Early action is certainly a really great way to apply. Middleborough is really great at preparing students for the application process through this boot camp and really kind of laying out each step for you. So if you do take advantage of the boot camp, it's going to be a great way to be ready to apply early action, because 90% of the process will already be done for you. And certainly you can still apply regular decision too. Most schools, their regular decision deadline is sometime in February, early February. And that's usually priority for most schools. If you miss that deadline, you have to wait till the following year. So just keep that in mind as well. But regular decision is still perfectly fine if you're not prepared to submit an early action application. But definitely some options. You want to look into each of the schools you're looking at and applying to and what they offer and make your decision accordingly.
And Shannon brings up a really good point. If you're not ready to do a complete and thorough job for the early deadline, don't submit sloppy work and just work that hasn't been thoroughly vetted. Make sure that sometimes it's just better to say, you know what, I'm playing football right now. I just don't have time to put everything in that needs to. I'm going to go with the regular decision deadline. Now, there's some majors out there that you absolutely want to apply early for, nursing being one of them. Nursing is very competitive at any school that's out there. So it's very important that if they have an early deadline for a nursing program, that you are absolutely making sure you're taking care of that business and getting everything out in a timely way. Did you apply? You applied early to schools?
Yeah, I applied
Mm-hmm.
early action to all the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely do that, especially like you said, like nursing, early action all the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And your girls applied early too, right?
Yeah, they both did.
Mhm. Okay. Just a reminder, if you are sending SAT scores or ACT scores, and so many schools since COVID have gone test optional, and it looks like a lot of them are sticking with that. But if you are applying to a school that is requiring a test score, that has to come from you. That's the one thing we cannot send for you from here. In order for it to be considered official, it can't touch anybody's hands. It has to go directly from College Board or from American College Testing directly to the college that that the student is applying to. So please make sure you're cognizant of that. There's always somebody that ends up saying, you didn't send my scores. So we're like, we can't send them for you. Just kind of keep that in the back of your minds. Letters of recommendation, we will talk more about in the next workshop. Again, there's a form you're going to need to fill out for that. And again, you get out of it what you put into it. They don't, the colleges don't really want to read more than a one-page letter of recommendation. You have thousands of things to review and go over. But they don't want a laundry list of things they can read in an application either. They really want anecdotal information. And so the general rule of thumb when you're filling out any of these forms for us to help us fill in the gaps of things we don't know about you, or your teachers too. Your teachers know what you got for grades, but they don't always know the effort that was behind it or the struggles behind it and what you did to be successful. So you get out of those forms what you put into them. You give one-liners, you get one-liners back. You state what it is, give 2 or 3 examples of why it was meaningful or significant enough to put on that sheet. Then that helps the teacher kind of piece it, and the counselor piece it all together so we can really show you as a well-rounded person. Any other comments from our panel before we go to questions? Yes.
Ask your teachers now to do letters of recommendations for you, because one of my teachers, she had to tell students that she can't do recommendations for them because so many people asked. So definitely ask them, even get an email so like you have a hard copy that they said yes. And then during the summer, it's more time consuming. It's not hard, but get the activity sheet done, get the letter of recommendation stuff done, and honestly, get your essay done. So when you go to school, you're not going to be stressed out about that. So many people were stressed out about getting that stuff done. It is very relieving to know that you got it done during the summer. So then you can send your teachers the letter of recommendation stuff. You can send your counselors that stuff. And also just always remind your teachers and your counselors of your due dates, because there's so many different due dates and like early action due dates. So let them know so they know when to get it done. They know when to submit it. It's very, very.
You're not bugging us by doing that. Believe me, we have a lot of moving parts in this process throughout the course of the fall. An extra email, an extra pop in, just want to remind you, it doesn't hurt, okay? And it does not bother us that you're doing that. It shows us that you're on the ball and you care about it and it's important to you. It just kind of helps us continue to organize and try to process things in a timely way for you. Anne, as a parent, what would be your best advice at this point going into the process?
Well, my best advice, I have a lot of advice. There's going to be a lot of deadlines. There's going to be a lot of information. So one of the things that between my older daughter and now, what I've come to realize is it is important to, you have to meet all those deadlines. Try to do as much as ahead of time as you can, but in the end, don't stress too much. Have them apply to several schools. You don't know what your end decision will be. have a range of schools, and just trust in the process. Make sure that you do everything you're supposed to, but also trust in the process that your child is going to end up where they're supposed to be.
Maddie, one piece of advice.
It was really just try to get as much stuff as you can when in the summer when you're not busy. It really, guys, it takes a few hours, but just get it done. Also, another huge thing of advice: have a set date for everything to be done. So I think my set date was like September, and then I was like, wait, no. But like, have a set date to make sure all your applications are done, all your again essay, everything's done, and be aware of the due dates. They do come a lot quicker than you realize. So just you'll be fine. Just make sure you have everything in order, and that's really it.
Any advice from our admissions counselors?
Yeah, I would say start early. Never too soon to start at least looking at schools, and use your resources. You have great staff here that are willing to help you. You can also reach out to the admissions offices. That's what we're here for, and that's why we do what we do, because we want to help you get to where you need to go. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out via phone call, email. As we mentioned, email etiquette is super important. If you've met us somewhere along your college search process, jog our memory, remind us how we met you and interacted with you. Make sure that you sign off the email with your first and last name so we know who we're talking to, especially if you have questions about where your application is in the process. It helps us to track everything down, because I have students all the time with a very vague email and they don't sign their name and I have no idea who I'm looking for. So keep that in mind. And parents, obviously, as we said, you are very much just as involved in this process and helping your student through it. But also for students, this is your first step towards your independence. So really do take advantage of the opportunity to reach out to admissions personally. I'm always happy to answer any questions that parents have. But when it comes to a student's application, where they are in the process, it's very important for us to speak with the student personally and directly. So certainly take charge of that and take ownership of your college search and application process.
Yeah. One piece of advice that I could give, I mean, they all raised really good points. You have deadlines and you have things that you need to do. Definitely keep a calendar. I live by my calendar, whether it's on your phone or whether I'm old school. I go buy an agenda book at the beginning of every year and, write everything down. If you have a visual of when things are due. And I think something that Maddie mentioned, just have one date, maybe 2 weeks before your first deadline to make sure that you have everything done. And also just have fun. I know that it's a really stressful process at times, but you're reaching a point, in your high school career that you should be really proud of. I mean, I feel as though you've accomplished a lot, and, touring schools and, figuring out what's best for you and kind of figuring out, where you're going to end up is a lot of fun. And I feel like sometimes that gets lost. So just remember that, this is a happy and joyous time in your life, and a time in your life where you should be really proud of yourself. So take time to kind of embrace that too.
Okay, and the bit of advice I would add to that, all good advice, is communication. Make sure you are communicating with the people that are a part of this process with you. That includes your parents. I get calls, my child hasn't done anything yet, and I've already met with them. They've already filled out applications. They've done a whole bunch. Tell your parents what's going on. Tell them what you've done. Communicate with your school counselor and the teachers writing your recommendations. It's important that you give us all the information in a timely way so we don't have to rush through and do sloppy work on your behalf. We want to write well thought out letters of recommendation, not a few lines because it's due tomorrow and you just gave it to us. We'll talk more about those deadlines down the road. 15 school days prior to your college deadline is when your teachers and your counselor needs everything, including your request for transcript, all the forms, all that stuff. That will assure that we can do a great job for you and put you and put you write the best letter that we can, showcase you and show you in the best positive light possible. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up to questions, and we're going to do this school committee style. There was a microphone in the back of the front part of the auditorium. So if there's any questions, so our friends at home can hear the question, the mic is right back there. You can just go right back there and ask any questions of the panel. Oh, come on, I know we didn't do that good a job. Come on. Here we go. Oh.
I don't think it's on. No.
No.
If there are
Well,
no
we can hear you now.
questions, if there weren't any questions, I could ask my question at the end so people could leave. I was going to offer to do that, but my question is very non-traditional and very non-conventional. I'm a parent of a college student currently, and this is my second student attending college. And I just wanted to ask about the admissions folks, about students that may desire to go to a four-year college or university. We're not talking dollars here, but we're talking going less than full-time. So instead of taking the 4 core courses and whatnot, or then early acceptance for graduate school, and you're stacking up and taking 6 classes in your junior year of college, can you apply through the college board, be accepted, and then negotiate something less than a full-time schedule? Not looking at the money piece now, knowing that you might go 5 years or 5.5 years to succeed academically and still get that degree, which would normally take only 4 years.
Yeah, you can certainly do a part-time program, or any program can be part-time for most schools, I believe. The important thing I know you said cost, not to worry about that, but just the important thing to consider is that usually financial aid, you're not eligible for financial aid when you go part-time. But any student is able to drop down to a part-time status.
Thank you.
I can speak for Emmanuel. Typically, a lot of our students are not part-time. So we may not be a good fit for a student who is looking to go to school part-time. We are, traditional just as part of the personalized education plan that each student has at Emmanuel. It might be a little bit difficult to go part-time. I would definitely, look at schools that have continuing education programs. Those are huge as far as, maybe taking some night classes and things like that. So there are schools out there, but there are some schools that have that rigid, traditional 4-year structure, but they are out there for sure.
Hello. My question is about the deadlines. Where can I get a list of the dates and the deadlines and what's due on this day and what's due on that date?
I can take that one.
Okay.
You can get them in several places, the college website, and also in SCORE. When you click on a school, like we showed you in the search, once you click on it, immediately when it pops up right there, it's going to tell you what the different deadlines are. So right now, the deadlines are usually the 1st or the 15th of the months. Not every 1st and 15th. Each school will pick one of those dates. Regular decision deadlines usually begin January 1st and run the 1st and the 15th all the way up through April. The early ones start in November 1st all the way through December 15th. Sometimes schools change them, so I wouldn't go by the deadlines that you see in there right now. I would wait until August to see if anything's changed. And then there's rolling admissions. Rolling admissions means you can apply anytime you can apply the day before school starts. So there's positives and negatives to rolling admissions. Rolling admissions means there's always a school you can apply to. But they don't wait because there's no deadline. They don't wait for the whole pool to come in and make decisions. What happens is you send your application, they read it, to make a decision. I send my application, they read it. So if they fill up in January, they fill up in January.
Okay.
Okay?
And you said testing doesn't matter, like because of COVID, some people don't need SATs.
A lot of schools are now what they call test optional. Bridgewater and Emmanuel are both test optional.
Yes.
So that is something I would still take as a good practice, take the SAT, see just in case there's a school that ends up on the list that's requiring it. There's not that many anymore. And we don't know if this is going to be a permanent decision by the colleges, because it did start as a result of COVID. But I think they're starting to find out there's better ways to evaluate also. But it's a good practice just to take them and see. And then that's something that we would do, sitting down with the student and parent if they'd like to, and advise the scores support, they don't support, and give you a recommendation.
Well, when would those be due? For example, like I don't even know when testing is, where it is.
So in the workbook that is going to be emailed that we showed you, we have the test dates and deadlines. We are a test center for the May and for the November SAT. We are not a test center for the ACTs. But if you go to College Board's website or to American College Testing, ACT.org, you can get the list of the different locations in the area where you can take a test.
And I guess, am I supposed to have already have known this?
No.
Okay,
No.
so I'm asking the right.
No, because the up to this point, the students, we've given the juniors the PSAT, but that is conducted here during the school day. So we do all the ordering. Once you switch to the SAT, it goes to the student and they have to register online themselves.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
I'm afraid to get too close to this thing.
Right?
So for the two young ladies who are the admission counselors, I'm curious on the initial college campus visit, is it reasonable to expect one-on-one time with an admission counselor? So we're taking the entire week of February to visit 4 schools, some several hundred miles away, and I'd like more than 45 minutes with a freshman.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty much every school you're going to go to is going to have the opportunity for you to meet with an admission counselor either before, they may do a brief introduction, definitely after. You'll have the opportunity, all the tours typically end right in the Welcome Center or admissions building. You end up in the same place you started, and you have the opportunity to walk in and chat with any of the admission staff that are there and ask all your questions, certainly.
So is it more of a formal, one-on-one interview, or is it just more information?
For Bridgewater specifically, it would be more just a one-on-one conversation. It's nothing formal. So for sure, any questions, family, student, we welcome it all. We'll pull you kind of aside and have that conversation, whether that be in an office or just a separate setting. But you'll have certainly that time to speak more intimately with the admission counselor specifically.
So not to be redundant, so should we be setting these meetings up ahead of time or anticipate them when we go?
Yeah, no, you can always call and set up a time to come in and meet, but typical practice would be that if you're already at the school, you can just pop in. Or if you're just popping by to visit and had a question, absolutely. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Of course.
I just wanted to tail on that a little bit. Do you guys both offer open houses? We had gone to an open house and found that a little bit better for us. We learned a little bit more about the school. We got to see a little more at the school. I don't know if every school offers that, or if it's one in the spring, one in the fall. What do you each do?
Yeah, so definitely look for large events. So Emmanuel will host 2 open houses. We'll have one in October and then another one in November. So the open houses are, larger scale events. So it's a little bit more of a, admission staff will be there so that you can chat with them, but it's really an opportunity for you to learn more about the academic programs. There will be, academic expos, where there's representatives from each academic department. There will be representatives from clubs and organizations and student resources. So definitely look for those too. And then also, we have accepted students days as well. So if you're accepted to the college, it's a little bit more of like a personalized open house. It's just for admitted students. For Emmanuel personally, we do, mini classes, and you can interact with current and other prospective students. So those larger events are really great for some families too.
You noted that for early decision, it's a binding agreement if you get accepted. Does that mean binding even before any financial aid information is available?
Yes. Yep. By applying early decision, you're stating that regardless of the situation, if you are accepted, you will attend the school.
And with early acceptance, you have more time to wait for all the financial info?
Correct. Yep. Early action is non-binding, and you still have until May 1st to submit a decision. It doesn't have to be to the particular university. It could be any school. So certainly, again, if you're unsure, I would say early decision is rare. It would have to be a student who is really, really sure they want to attend that school. Early action is definitely a better option for students who are still deciding where they want to end up.
And how to pay for it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And as
Of
school
course.
counselors too, we're not big fans of early decision. It's just happens so soon, and in some cases, colleges are unlike businesses. Sometimes it's an opportunity to try to get you to lock in and commit to them, and not have to offer you that aid. And please do not try to play the early decision game where you do apply to more than one school early. I had a student many years ago who did that, who was being recruited to play tennis. She applied early decision to Babson and to Bentley. I happened to know the tennis coach at Babson, and he had reached out to me and asked me about her. One day, brought her on campus. She spent the day with the team. She stayed over. She got to attend practice. And then Bentley and Babson found out that she applied to both schools, early decision, and they both rescinded their decision. So here she was in the springtime, and those two schools were now out. It's not a good game to play.
Hi. So this has less to do with the logistical side of application and more to do with the community side of it. I know that this school, Middleborough, has such a great support system available for students, and I was wondering what level of support, whether that's academic, mental health, emotional health, what level of support is typically available for students at any time on a college campus?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I'll speak to Bridgewater specifically. So we have an academic achievement center for students who are looking for any sort of extra support. It's open to all of our students. We do house our student accessibility office within the academic achievement center. So anybody who's needing particular accommodations if they have an IEP, that would be through the student accessibility, but also within the academic achievement center, we have a variety of different resources, from a writing studio to a communications lab. You can get a tutor through that program as well. So really just a wide variety of different supports. All of our faculty do have office hours as well. So students that have questions can pop into office hours and ask any questions and get any additional support that they need. In terms of physical and mental health, we do have a wellness center right on our campus, and it's open business hours 9 to 5. And then if there is something that happens outside of those hours, we do have campus police, we do have students, would have to reach out to emergency services beyond the business hours. But when it comes to mental health, we do have counseling services in our wellness center as well. And we do have a crisis line as well. So anything that happens after hours, students can call that wellness center line. They'll get directed to the crisis call-in, and they'll be able to assess the situation and help the student through it. So we certainly do want to make sure our students are healthy and safe. So that's definitely an important factor at BSU.
Yes, we have a lot of similar services. We do have an academic resource center. Like Shannon was saying, we have writing tutors, we have student tutors who excelled in various academic programs at the school who can help other students who may be struggling. We also have a counseling and wellness center on campus for both physical and mental well-being. Very similar. We also have a crisis line. So definitely ask those questions when you go to any school. Definitely have a public and private perspective as to what services are offered, but definitely make sure that you're asking those questions at any school that you tour.
Thank you.
In addition to, for the resident students, there's a residence life staff. So there's a professional resident director in the residence halls, usually somebody with a degree in counseling. And then there's trained residence life staff, resident assistants in the buildings, usually 1 or 2 per floor, that are trained in early interventions, and they do educational programming to help, on hot topics on college campuses, and they keep they do rounds of the building, make sure it's safe and secure, and report anything that if there's any sort of medical or psychiatric or health emergency. They know who to contact to get the resources in right away to assist the students. And I will put a plug in for the Academic Achievement Center of Bridgewater State, because that's where I did one of my internships way back in the day. And there's also specialty schools that have specialty programs for students that need special ed support. Curry College has the PAL program, which helps a student initially with an advisor/counselor. In the beginning, they have actually kind of like a study built into their schedule in the beginning, and then as a student develops the skills to succeed in college, by the time they're a senior, that study's gone, or they don't meet as frequently and stuff. Westfield State also has a specialized program for special ed students. There's actually an admissions counselor that's specific for that program. It's a special application for that. So those are two of the bigger programs in the area to support special ed students.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you are coming from a great community here at Middleborough. And they have done a fantastic job with both my girls in becoming leaders at that next step too. You will be prepared very well for college, and reach out and ask for those services if you need them.
So if there's no other questions, I think we kept you here long enough. This is probably one of the longest ones we've had. We appreciate your patience. We will continue to be meeting with the students and getting them set up on their score accounts. It's probably going to be taking place over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks. But we will get everybody on and up and running on that. Your students can invite you to access that account. So if you haven't gotten an invitation for that, then I would talk with your student about that and saying, hey, click the button so I can look and see what's going on this thing. We will all be around for a few minutes if you have any specific or individual questions for any of us. And if not, for those of you who came out tonight, thank you very much. We appreciate it. For those of you watching at home, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.